Okay, let's go to Greeks and Greek American images. Cara and Vespina?
Hi.
Okay.
I just wrote my final paper for this class on Western views of Greece through films like Never on Sunday and Zorba the Greek, and how I wrote about how they both promote this tourist myth, and Greeks aren't to be taken seriously, they're non-conforming. So I was just wondering, maybe about Zorba and Kakoulianis, do you feel like this is an accurate depiction of Greeks, or what film best depicts Greeks accurately?
Okay. And Vespina?
My question is kind of similar to Kara's, but what film do you believe depicts Greek Americans in the most authentic way?
I'll take yours first, and we'll go back to your, because it'll be they're related. There's the film that I like the best of all the films is one you haven't seen, I'm sure, and it's hard to get a hold of. It's called Dark Odyssey, and it was made in 1954. It was made in New York City. One of the directors and the screenwriter was a Greek, and his co-director, I'm not sure what his ethnicity is. I think he's Jewish, but I'm not sure. But it's pretty much, as far as the script is concerned and the concept, it's by a Greek guy. And the story is very good. A Cretan arrives in New York City with a gun, and he's going to kill the man who has spoiled his, basically misled his, I was going to say raped, he didn't rape, but he deflowered his sister, and then his sister committed suicide, so this guy's going to come, I'm going to get you for doing this. And he arrives in New York, and he meets a Greek-American woman who's very nice, and they fall in love. And it's a very interesting love story, because it's not this business, rip your clothes off and let's go to it. It's this very gentle, you see them understanding one another, really falling in love in the genuine sense of the word. It isn't just sex, not that sex is not involved or underscored. And so he then faces this question: should I be a traditional Greek, get my revenge and kill this guy, which will definitely have negative consequences, or should I forget about that and marry this woman and live in a modern way as a modern person? And he struggles with it throughout the whole film. And the family that he's brought into, the Greek-American family, is very interesting. They're very traditional Greeks, and the younger sister of the Greek-American has an American boyfriend, and the parents don't like the idea that they have an American boyfriend. So all these issues are swirling around, and they get resolved in a very dramatic way. The film was shot in 1954. These guys had no money, so they basically shot in the streets and did on-site shooting. I think only one set was used. So it's very authentic. It doesn't look like a studio film. It looks like New York. In fact, one of the reasons people like seeing it now who are not Greek is they, oh my goodness, this is what New York looked like in 1954. And that's very nice. The other thing is handheld cameras had just become available. So they could use handheld cameras, which would not have been possible even 3 or 4 years earlier. So I think that movie is really encapsulates Greek culture the best. The lead player in that is a dancer named Athenkaris, who later on became one of the most famous dancers in America, probably the leading dancer of folk music, folk dancing in the United States, and perhaps in the world. And he dances in that film, and he does a dance of death. At a certain point, they have this wonderful apartment scene where the Greeks are all getting together and they're drinking, having a good time, and they say, well, let's dance a little bit. They all start dancing. And that scene, having grown up in that time period, I said, I've seen that scene 100 times you know, at my yaya's house, at my Kubaro's house, and so forth. They got it perfectly. And then there's a sword on the wall, and they start talking about the sword, and he comes out and he does a sword dance. And then you realize that when he dances that dance, many of the Greek movements don't make any sense unless you think of them holding a sword or having a sword on their side. And the dance, in this particular dance, was a dance of death. And as he's making the dance, you see him struggling in his mind between the girl and the guy he's going to kill. And he gets going and going in. He winds himself up, and the death thing takes over. And so the dancing shows him, and you realize, oh my God, he's killing this guy. And that's what this dance is about. You're whipping yourself up in order to... It's wonderful. I mean, this little 10-minute sequence, and it tells you about Greek music, tells you about Greek dancing, and so forth. There's a wonderful little scene when they sit down with the mother, and the Greek girl brings in the Greek guy, and they start talking. She says, "Oh, let's have some cognac." Now, if you know what this is, like the acceptance, you know, this is because the good stuff comes out, and you have cognac together. It means we accept you. Later on, they finally let the American guy into the house, and they sit down. They're talking, and the daughter says, "Maybe we should get the cognac." And the mother says, "Okay," you know. And they bring out the cognac and they drink it, but she doesn't drink. So it's full of those little cultural things that are terrific. And in the end, by the way, I shouldn't tell you the ending, but I'm not going to give you a big ending, but they do accept the Greek American, and they decide, and they, in a way which is not like not like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which is kind of silly, but in a really sophisticated Greek way. And so I like that movie. There's another one which is not as good, but called Do You Want to Dance, which has a Greek priest who's completely modern. He doesn't wear, you know, the garb. He loves the Chicago Cubs fan, and it's quite interesting to see this in contemporary Chicago. And there's another one called It Could Be Worse, which is about a Greek gay male who decides to make a movie. He's going to make a movie about a Greek gay male coming out to his family. Since he has no money, he's going to have his family play the fictional family in the film, and he's going to pay the guy in the film who's coming out to the family. Then midway through the film, he says, "I think I'm going to come out to my family." And so in the film, he's the real guy, etc., 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 and everybody's singing and dancing. They're terrible singers and dancers, but they're terrible in the way of being amateurs, and therefore they become very lovable. And every once in a while they say, "Oh, what's going to happen?" So it could be worse. It could be worse. And it's an interesting film. I can't think of any feature films that are nearly as good as these in terms of Greek America. I'm talking about Greek America. Now, if we talk about Zorba the Greek and Never on Sunday, these are two fantasies. Never on Sunday is particularly a fantasy. You know, Greeks do not break plates. When you were growing up, if you broke a plate, you're in trouble, baby. You don't break things in the house. Maybe New Year's Eve. Maybe if there's a baptism, some cheap thing you throw. But this idea of crashing plates, that's not very Greek. It's not very common. Basically, that was a habit that grew up in the docks of Greece, in Piraeus and so forth, by the people who were basically in a sort of underworld drug culture, and they would break dishes to show their contempt for bourgeois society. When you see these guys picking up a table with their teeth, and there's one famous Greek actor who can pick up a table with his teeth and do all kinds of things and so forth. They're showing contempt for bourgeois society. They're not showing admiration. But Never on Sunday turns around, plays with it, and so forth, and then suddenly everybody starts smashing dishes all over the place, and now they smash dishes in Greece too. And of course, there are special dishes now. You know, they have the special cheap ones. so you don't break the good stuff. But it's a fantasy, and it's okay as a fantasy. I mean, and that film was very controversial in the United States. Many people in the United States didn't like it because, in fact, Never on Sunday, the lead character is a prostitute. And Americans said, all we need to do is have a film everybody's going to see, and the Greek women are prostitutes. But since the Americans liked the movie, people decided, okay, we'll let it go. Zorba the Greek was much more popular. And as somebody had just said, my problem with Zorba the Greek is not that it's a particularly bad movie, but that people, I don't think it's a particularly good movie either, but people, Americans, males feel they should be a Zorba. You know, this big personality guy full of profundities. You know, I call them pseudo-profundities. It's like Indians in the movies. If there's an Indian, he always says something like, oh yes, when the wheat turns yellow, we know such and such. Oh yeah, very wise. Where Anthony